Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911 Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, your host, and we are back with another innovator interview. We're going to be talking with Good Girl Gone Green creator and green living mentor, Stephanie Moram. She's been looking at the choices for entertaining sustainably this summer, but we also want to talk about bringing communities together this summer to do green things. Over the years, she's been exploring many ways that we can reduce our environmental impact, like we do at Earth911, and she has a special emphasis on making our lives unique and enjoyable. There's no right or wrong way to become more green, Stephanie says, and of course, we agree with that. She offers online learning programs, including one called Find Your Green that she's going to be relaunching in the next few weeks, for women who want to understand the sustainability questions they should consider when making choices at the store and at home. So let's get into the question about making your summer entertaining and community building green with Stephanie. Welcome to the show, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, we love your site, goodgirlgonegreen.com. And I wanted to start off by asking you, in the context of coming out of the pandemic, people are starting to get together again, but what kind of activities do you suggest that people engage with in their neighbors to start a conversation about sustainability as we come back together as a community?
So I think the first thing that we can do is go for a walk. Ask your neighbors if they want to go for a walk with you. That's where conversations start, right? Mm-hmm. You're just going for a walk, you're, just chatting about life. And then the conversations come up about sustainability. It always comes up in my conversations naturally. So I think just going, walking with your neighbors and just getting to know them. The next thing is, I recently moved in September. I lived in a condo and now we have a house. We sold our condo and we have neighbors that actually talk to us. So the conversations do come up about green living and everything like that, because they'll be outside mowing their lawn, or they're going to be, doing some yard work, and they ask us how we are. We ask them how they are. And then the conversation just naturally evolves into green conversations. For example, they have this really cool lawnmower that was actually electric lawnmower, and my husband was looking for one. And he just started a conversation about electric lawnmowers and what's better. I just had this really great conversation with our neighbor. Our other neighbor is all about plants. So I've had a gazillion conversations with him about plants because he owns an actual plant store. So I think it's just really getting out of our shell a little bit and just starting conversations wherever that is. Going for a walk, just saying hi to your neighbors, saying hi to the people that, walk by you on the street. And if you want to go a step further, it could be starting activities within your community, going to the town and say, hey, could we organize this this event around X topic? And could be like
something like that, right?
Yeah, totally. Meeting up at a park and having like a barbecue, like a community barbecue, and asking the town, can we do this? And can we invite the people in the town? You know what I mean? So I think it's just being creative, and it's really all, like you said, Mitch, it's like starting that conversation, and it's having an authentic conversation. It's not like just verbally vomiting, sustainability on somebody. It's just having that conversation and allowing that conversation to lead potentially into a green living conversation.
Yeah. So you don't have to wear a t-shirt that says, ask me about being green.
You can, but you don't have to.
Well, so, you shared with us a list of ideas for hosting parties, and I wanted to run through some of them. Now, you suggest people bring their own utensils. How do you look at utensils? Do you think it's better to use steel reusable utensils, or to use compostable utensils in a party situation? Because people will show up, and sometimes they will, and sometimes they won't have that kind of thing in hand. What do you recommend?
So I think it just depends where you are in your journey of sustainability and green living. Some people find it super inconvenient to bring their own cutlery, super inconvenient to wash dishes when they have a party. So then I think the next best thing is compostable. It's better than the regular plastic ones. If you're in a position where you don't care that you wash dishes and you don't care that you ask your guests to bring their own cutlery, I would ask my guests. I have zero problems doing that, but some people might feel a little bit shy. But for me, it's all about reusing. So if I'm having a party at my house, I feel like it's my rules, right? In the sense of I'm going to make sure there's reusable cups, reusable plates. I will use either wooden spoons, like wooden utensils or metal utensils. I'll make sure that everything's reusable.
Do you put it on the invite? When you invite people, do you explicitly ask them to do that?
Well, what I'm saying is like, I will have I have my own supply.
Sure, of course. Right.
Like I thrifted a bunch of stuff for like birthday parties and stuff like that. But if I didn't have enough, let's say, I would maybe ask, my friends like, hey, if you have like a plastic cup, do you mind bringing it? Because I'm not going to go out and buy compostable ones. And my friends know what I do and where I stand. So they would just chuckle and think it's hilarious. Right. But if you're not in that position and you feel maybe a little bit awkward asking people and you don't have enough plastic because, you don't want to bring glass outside, then buy the compostable ones, like it's all about, it's not about perfection living green, right? It's about doing the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. And I think having compostable, if you compost and if you have industrial composting in your town, then I think it's a good option. Obviously, reusables, in my opinion, are better. But if you don't have that option, then it's compostable.
So, you also talk about the idea of replacing one item in your home every day with a sustainable alternative. And that takes a little work. So how do you keep focused on doing that and moving forward every day?
Well, I think it's all about the journey, where you are. And so when it comes to replacing an item in your house, it could be as simple as, I used to buy plastic, when I say I'm just like generally saying like the person, I might have used Ziploc bags and plastic bags all the time, and they want to move to more sustainable ones. So is there another option out there? Can you use silicone bags instead? Can you use cloth bags instead? What is that option? If you used to, let's say, put your glass jars in the trash all the time, or used to recycle them. Okay, instead of doing that, use them as cups, so then you don't have to buy cups anymore. So I think there's just so many things that you can replace in your home to be more green, and it's kind of one step at a time. I kind of went down the path of, once I learned something, I was unable to learn it, and I kind of just like went crazy and just removed what I wanted to remove from my home. But I think it's small baby steps. And I think that's what people have to understand, that you're not going to go from, living the lifestyle, say, where you weren't as caring when it came to the planet. And now you're like, okay, I really want to concentrate on living green. So it could be replacing plastic bags. If you use straws, it could be using stainless steel straws. If you shave, it could be getting a stainless steel shaver. It could be, instead of buying shampoo bottles all the time, if you have a refill station, you can refill your bottles you already have with shampoo and conditioner. It could be using shampoo bars or conditioner bars. And I think when you make that switch, it's to make the switch from the thing that you use the most. So if you always use straws, right?
Sure.
So I was going to say, like, if you always use straws, then that would be the switch that I would make. If you rarely use straws, then maybe that's not the most important switch.
Right. But how do you, and this is, I think about this too, because I try to practice the same thing, but keeping it going on a day-to-day basis, do you kind of start the morning and look around to find that thing, or do you make a list of things and then kind of knock things off your list? That's always hard for people to keep the momentum going.
Well, for me, I'm pretty much at the very, when I talk about green living, I talk about the different colors, right? You have like the light green and then like the really dark green. I think I'm really at the dark green, and I think I've switched out a lot of things already. But if it's for someone that's starting out, a list could be a great idea. Or when you use that item, so say, I don't know, give an example. You have a box of plastic bags and you have 4 left. Use them until they're done. Don't just throw them out. So when you have finished using that Ziploc bag, then it's your moment to go, okay, now I need to get my sustainable option. And it could be making a list of all the things that you use the most and what isn't a sustainable option that you can use. So, people use a lot of plastic bags. So it could be that could be the number one thing on your list. getting rid of the Ziploc bags and getting cloth bags for shopping and stuff like that. But making a list could be a great idea. Every time you're done with something, then look for the sustainable option. So the next time you need that product, you're not reaching for the disposable option.
Now, you're also a proponent of using plants indoors and opening the windows to improve air quality. But what do you suggest for a summer like we're headed into? In fact, this weekend, maybe the hottest days ever in the Seattle area. So should we be closing the windows? And what do you do in that case? Does the plant help enough?
So for me, when I lived in our condo, I didn't have a lot of plants. And now I'm going crazy with plants. I feel like it changes the whole vibe of my house. Having plants, I don't know, it just makes you happier. I didn't realize that plants can make me so happy, but they do, because I'm constantly looking at them going, oh my gosh, a new leaf came. Oh my gosh, it got bigger. I'm just kind of staring at this plant and watching it grow. It's like I'm watching a kid, right? Like my kids grow up. And so I feel like on one hand, it brings joy to your house. And like I said, I never thought plants would bring so much joy to my house. I enjoy doing it. I love watering them. I love finding new plants. And plants just help to clean your air, right? Like, there's science on both sides that is it true, is it not true? I like plants, so I'm just going to believe that they do actually, the plants I have in my house are helping to clean my air quality. And yes, it's super hot in Seattle where I am, not super hot right now, but it doesn't have to be that you open your window for 4 hours. It could be you just open your window, maybe open 2 or 3 windows, let the air circulate, and then close them up and put your air conditioning back on, right? Because you want to get that clean air in your house. If you're constantly around air conditioning for month after month, it's also not great for your house because you're not breathing in clean, fresh air. I have snow where I am. So in the winter, I open my windows, even though it's freezing cold, I open them up for 5 minutes, get the air circulating in the house, and then I close them.
So now let's talk about starting out, and if you're going shopping, what do you suggest people look for as kind of the low-hanging opportunities to improve their environmental impact? Start with food. Where would you begin?
I think it depends kind of where you're at, right? So I started my journey and it was food. Watched Food Inc. completely changed my life. And then other people, it might be the cleaning products they're using in their house that caught their attention. Other people might be because they use so much makeup, it's the makeup that caught their attention. It could be that they're buying clothing and they watch XYZ documentary, and that's what gets them started on their journey. So I think everyone kind of comes in to the green living space from a different point, right? So mine just happened to be food, which led me down the rabbit hole of food, then the products I'm putting on my body, which, and my kids' bodies and blah, 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 down to the clothing. So I think it just kind of depends on your entry point. But I think if somebody wasn't really living a sustainable lifestyle and they came up to me and said, Stephanie, I don't know what to do. It's so overwhelming. The first thing I would say is, when you go shopping, do you take a plastic bag or do you bring your own? They're like, well, I take my own. That would be the first thing I would say. Get a reusable bag. Get a handful of them, have them in your car, have them hanging at your door so you don't forget them. And that would be the number one thing. Because I think a lot of people like us in this space, we take it for granted that people have reusable water bottles, that they have reusable cloth bags. I think we would be surprised with the amount of people that don't use reusable bags and reusable water bottles.
Sure.
So for me, that is the low hanging fruit. If they already use cloth bags and they already use reusable water bottles, then I would say, okay, before you put something in the trash or the recycling, look at it and say, can I reuse this in some capacity? Mm-hmm. Can I reuse that glass jar for a plant? Can I use that glass jar instead of going out and buying containers for my food in the fridge for leftovers? Can I use that glass jar? I'm never going to have to buy a glass cup in my life again because I keep my glass jars. So when they break and fall on the ground, I'm not freaking out. I just spent $10 on this cup. It was my peanut butter jar, right?
Now, the other thing that is challenging for a lot of people when they start to take that green journey is finding the right information to help them understand what is sustainable, not just, the product's sustainability, but how to use it sustainably. How do you find sources and make choices about who you're going to pay attention to in terms of green guidance?
Well, Google is my friend. I Google everything. I search everything. And I look beyond let's say we're talking about a brand. Mm-hmm. And I want to buy certain clothing or, makeup or whatever that is, like a sustainable company. I look beyond what they're necessarily kind of saying on the website, because there's a lot of companies out there that say, oh, we're green and we're this and we're that. Sure. And once you kind of like pull the curtain a little bit, you're like, well, are you really? So I think it's just asking questions to different companies. My number one question is, if they don't say it on the website, where was this made? My next question is, was this made in a fair way? Are the people that made these products paid fair wages? Like, did children make this product? And then those are my two main questions. Where was it made and who made it? And then whatever the product is it sustainable materials? So let's say we're talking about clothing. Is that t-shirt made of hemp or organic cotton? Is the packaging sustainable? Are they sending that organic t-shirt in a plastic bag? Or are they sending it in something that's more sustainable? Do they use minimal packaging? So these are all questions that I ask companies. And I love to tell this story just for a minute. I needed a new suitcase about 2 years ago. My suitcase was completely done. I needed a new one. And it took me a long time to find a suitcase that kind of met my criteria of what I look for. I found one suitcase that was made of recycled plastic, which I was like, great, recycled plastic. This is awesome. Mm-hmm. And then I found another suitcase made by a company here, and kind of a company similar to Patagonia, same type of values of Patagonia. And it wasn't made of sustainable materials, but they were able to tell me where it was made. And they were able to tell me that the people that made this suitcase were paid fair wages. And then the recycled suitcase company, I called them and asked them tons of questions, and they weren't able to answer them. They were like, well, it's made here and we think so-and-so makes it. And they just weren't able to give me an answer that I felt comfortable with. So I always tell people, sometimes something better for the planet isn't always better for the people. And something better for the people isn't always better for the planet, right? Sometimes you can't have both. So I looked at the suitcases and I said, what's most important to me? I want to know that the product that I'm buying, that the people behind that product are being treated in a fair, ethical way. That is so important to me. So I bought this suitcase that was made of just regular materials, but it was a sturdy suitcase. I'm going to have this suitcase probably till I die. So in that sense, it is super sustainable because I'm going to have it for a long time. And I know the people that made it were paid fair wages, and I feel comfortable buying it, versus the plastic one. It would probably break and I'd probably have to buy a new one, and I have no idea who made it. So I think it's just to kind of decide what's the most important for you and to ask companies hard questions, because if no one's asking the hard questions, they're not going to change, right? Especially the big companies.
And this notion of trade-offs is really interesting. There are a variety of services now that are starting to aggregate a bunch of information, but it is usually sort of unidimensional. It's like all about the environment or all about fair labor, but not bringing all that together in such a way that you can make a value judgment about what you are willing to trade off. Now, you call companies and ask questions. Do you find that they welcome those questions, or is that a challenge? And does it take a lot of time?
A lot of the time I send like Instagram messages to people. And then if I need to get on the phone with them. So let's say there's a company I see, I'm looking for shoes. Like I need a new pair of running shoes and I'm searching for running shoes. I'll send the company, if I don't find the answer on their website, or I kind of want to dig a little deeper, I'll send them an Instagram message, say, hey, where was this made and who made it? Mm-hmm. Most of the time they answer that question. They send me a link to where I can find the information, and all that kind of stuff. I ask them, if they say, oh, it was made in, overseas somewhere, like in Bangladesh or China, I'll say, okay, what do you have in place to assure that they are being paid fair wages? Right. And they say, and they'll be like, we go visit them X time a year. We make sure we have good relationships with them. So they're able to answer those questions. So a lot of the time I start with an Instagram message or an email. If I need to talk to them on the phone, I will call them and ask questions. But most of the time, they're able to answer those questions through email or direct message on Instagram. But when they're chasing their tails, when they send you like a form replied email, you're like, okay.
Yeah, boy, I've seen enough of those. But that raises another question. Do you prefer to buy direct from the company so they ship it to you, or are you okay with ordering through an e-commerce system like Amazon?
That's a really big question. I prefer to buy directly from the actual company because I know more money is going into their pocket when I do that. But there are websites out there, not Amazon, but other websites that are, let's say, also mom and pop owned, but they sell a variety of products from different companies, right? So I'm thinking of one here. It's called wells.ca. It's like more of a sustainable website. And they have multiple products on there. I would feel comfortable buying from them because they have a lot of sustainable products. But I really, really try to buy direct from the company itself. And the Amazon question is like such a huge question. So it's like a can of worms question. I really, really don't love Amazon personally. I feel like their packaging is just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And I would much prefer to buy a product from the company because Amazon takes, a large chunk of their
and
profits.
they have labor issues too.
That too. That could be a whole podcast episode. Why I don't buy from Amazon.
Well, if anybody's read the book Fulfillment, it would be very difficult to continue to do it and feel good about it. Now, let me ask about the Find Your Green course. I know you've run it for a long time and you're about to relaunch it. How many women have been through the program?
That's a really good question. Probably a couple hundred.
Okay. What do they learn? Focus on.
So it's kind of like four topics. I talk about like sustainable fashion. I talk about a little bit about non-toxic living, reading food labels, reading personal care labels, the sustainable fashion, like I mentioned, and also how to reduce your waste. So what is it that you do to reduce your waste? And I give a lot of resources like where do I buy my products? Where do I get my clothing? How do I do like a closet clean out? What ingredients do I avoid in food? What ingredients do I avoid in, makeup and personal care and all that kind of stuff? And what questions do I ask companies when I want to buy a product from them? So kind of globally, that's kind of what it is. And I also have, since we're on a podcast right now, I did like a really short 5-part series podcast called Live a Little More Green. So if anybody's interested, it's like max 30 minutes and you listen to it on Apple or wherever you listen to a podcast. And it's kind of like a free opt-in. And if somebody wanted that, it's goodgirlgonegreen.com/live a little more green. And then they would just be on my email list. And when I relaunch my course, then they'll get emails when it's relaunched if they're interested in learning a little bit more about it. Or I hang out on Instagram. I love Instagram. So I can be found on Instagram.
That's come through more than a few times. Now, let me ask about the women who are doing it. Is it does it span generations, or is this mostly young moms, for instance, who are trying to both live green and teach their kids to be green?
I think it just kind of depends. I feel like it's for the women that might be a little bit more overwhelmed and not sure where to start, where they're bombarded with like so much information, like buy this, don't buy that, use a reusable straw, don't use a straw at all. You have too many cloth bags. You don't have enough cloth. Like it's just overwhelmed. And it could be young moms that are just like, how do I have a green lifestyle and still, work my 9 to 5 and still, I have kids and I have all these responsibilities. And so it's just a place where they can get the information. They don't have to Google, sit for hours Googling. I've done that. I've spent hours. It took me forever to find my suitcase. So it's just kind of a space where that overwhelmed woman that is just, doesn't know where to start. It's like a starting point for them. They are going to find their green. and, go from maybe light green to dark green or light green to medium green, just depending where their journey goes. So I'm here to help them and guide them on that journey.
So you've done the homework and you're sharing what you've learned.
Right. And it's funny because how I got started with Good Girl Gone Green was my friend, 11 or 12 years ago saying, you have so much information in your head, you need to share it somewhere. And I said, I don't want to write. I'm not a writer. I just like to talk. She's like, you should start a blog anyways. Your grammar doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody cares. So that's how I kind of got started with my blog, was just sharing things I was learning on my journey, things I was finding on my journey, different products, and how I was living more of a green lifestyle. And then that kind of just snowballed into where I am now, where I really want to help people where they're at on their journey. And it's not an all for nothing, it's just, the small steps forward to make those changes.
Well, Stephanie, I think this is a great place to end the conversation, because we've covered a lot of territory here, but I'd love to have you come back and talk about what to do in the fall and winter soon. Thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and I would love to come back.
Great. Well, we've been talking with Stephanie Moram. She's the founder and ongoing author of goodgirlgonegreen.com. That's all one word, goodgirlgonegreen.com. You can check out her site and her courses anytime. We encourage you to take a look. This is Earth911, Sustainability in Your Ear. I want to ask you a favor before you end the show today. Would you share it with a couple of your friends? Learning to be green is a mission, and it's a mission for all of us to undertake. So spread the word. We appreciate it. We'll be back with another innovator interview soon. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, your host, and this is Earth911, Sustainability in Your Ear. Take care of yourself, take care of one another, and of course, let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.